Well, good morning, viewers. Today we have a 2018 GMC Sierra 1500 4x4, I believe, with the 5.3. And the customer's complaining that it's running rough. I don't see any check engine light on. It doesn't appear to be running rough right now. But we're going to scan it and see if there's any codes in history. Yeah, let's get going. So I'm not sure if this is a new vehicle ID, but it's new to this session anyway, so I let it automatically ID. It's got about 100,000 kilometers on it. And I'm going to do a network code scan of all the controllers and see what it has to report. P0300, engine misfire detected. P06DD, engine oil pressure control solenoid valve stuck off. Oh brother, not another oil pump problem. Test not passed since power up. Test failed since DTC cleared. Front video display output signal. Left rear audio, control module power circuit below voltage, low speed CAN bus, lost communication with HVAC, control module power circuit voltage low. And that's the end of the network scan. And all the monitors have run and passed. So I don't want to clear the codes just yet because I want to look at engine data and specifically misfire counters, because if you clear the codes it'll erase the misfire counters, because P0300 is random. Misfire in history 271, 444, 626 and 8, 134. Misfire in cylinder 1, 3, 5 and 7. So it is totally random because all cylinders are reporting some misfire. I wonder if it's a fuel quality issue. It's definitely not ticking right now. I did a clear flood mode cranking event and it sounded normal. Of course that wouldn't go away. It wouldn't be random if it had a mechanical problem in the engine, in my opinion. But you can see there's no current misfires occurring. It just seems to be random. Let's look at freeze frame data for that P0300. It'll be in codes menu, freeze frame failure records, and engine misfire. Let's see what was going on at the time of that P0300 code being set. How come it didn't load? Maybe I didn't click it. Distance since last failure 24,000. Distance since first failure 24,000. Ignition cycles without completed test. One cycle since the last malfunction, according to that. So the ambient temperature was 21, coolant temperature was 60. Let's see what the fuel trims were doing. Short-term fuel trim on bank 1 was -2 and long-term was -17, so that's -19 in total. Let's see the other bank. Let's put it in the same line. 9 and 15, so that's 24, -24. So why is it taking fuel away? Do we have injector problems on this thing? What to do? Well, I don't want to clear the codes just yet. Let's have a look at some engine data. Let's see, data display. Let's take a look at fuel pressures. Fuel trim data, is it in this mess? Or is it in the fuel injector data? Fuel system data? Well, let's try the fuel injector data. I want to look at high pressure fuel pressure, fuel rail pressure sensor PSI. And these are auto ranging graphs, that's why they look like they are jumping around. That's the fuel supply pressure. Fuel rail pressure sensor 2 in PSI. So this lower one is low pressure fuel rail pressure, and the top one is the 2 fuel rail pressure sensors at the high pressure side, and they look like they're jumping around because they're auto ranging. I'm going to shut the key off and then turn the key back on real quick so I don't lose data. Before I shut it off, I noticed the engine RPM sagged a little bit. And it seems to be stumbling a little bit right now. I'm going to go back and look at misfire data just one sec, just to see if it is actually starting to miss on a specific cylinder. Cylinder 2, cylinder 1. That's misfire history. So these are currents. It is running and kind of stumbling a little bit, but not a dead miss, that's for sure. Okay, let's go back to the fuel system pressure. I want to see if any of these, if the fuel pressure leaks off. Fuel injector data was the one I was in. High pressure fuel pressure needs to climb during a hot soak. So we're running about 600 or 700 psi. Let's put these 2 data parameters up on the top of the screen. Now I'm going to shut off the key and turn it back on. Now during a hot soak, the fuel pressure will increase because of the heat from the engine causing the fuel to expand, but it'll decrease if one or more of the injectors is leaking. And we don't seem to have, I wonder what the fuel trims are doing right now. I didn't look. Maybe we got a leaky high pressure fuel pump and the crankcase has got gasoline in it. But usually that sets fuel trim codes, not misfire codes. But the fuel trims were negative on both banks when it did set the misfire codes. Usually has to hit about 25 to 30% total fuel correction, either positive or negative, before it sets a lean or rich code. So the fuel injectors don't appear to be leaking because the pressure is climbing, as you can see here. So that to me tells me that we don't have a serious leak from a fuel injector or a pressure relief valve. Let's fire it up again. So it peaked at about 2,000 psi there during cranking, it looks like. Let's just pause this for a second and go back and look. Yeah, during cranking there it peaked at about 2,000 psi. I'm going to save this recording. Let's look at what the fuel trims are doing right now currently. alcohol content is 10% because we can't buy E85 here. So we don't have a skewed alcohol composition sensor. That used to happen lots with the older systems. Long-term fuel trim. Short-term is +3 and -4. +4 and -2. Well, there's no gasoline in the crankcase right now unless he just changed the oil. Maybe this was happening some time ago when he's changed the oil. Let's have a look at accessory data, because I think that one shows the oil life remaining value. Engine oil pressure switch. And we have that oil pressure problem too. One of these data parameters is oil life. I'll look for it. So I found that here's the engine oil life remaining 76%, so you may have recently changed the oil, and this recording of freeze frame data could have happened when there was crankcase contamination, but it's not contaminated right now. Oh boy, what to do? Could be carbon deposits on the intake valves. Although this field gets a lot of highway driving, it's certainly possible if it does a lot of idling. Could be injector flow problems. You're going to have to discuss this with the customer. So I'm doing a network code clear, key on, engine off. I find sometimes the ABS codes won't clear with it running. But I don't think there were any ABS codes. Guess I could have closed the passenger driver's door. Now the other complaint this customer had was a couple weeks ago we had some unusually warm weather here for October. Warmest day on record for the last 50 to 70 years. And they needed the AC and it didn't work. So I was asked to look at the AC. And if you look at in here, you can see evidence of dye on that upper condenser tube. So it's got the typical condenser crack as well. All pattern failures on these trucks. The oil pump failure, oil pump control, injector issues, intake valve carbon deposits, and we haven't even talked about collapsing lifters and active fuel management system. This is still working on this one. We don't have a problem with push rods. It doesn't appear on this one yet. But it's also got the condenser problem. Imagine that. So I'm on the Identifix website. I ID'd the vehicle as a 2018 GMC Sierra 5.3 with keyword search for P0300 random misfire. And as you can see, fuel injectors are common. Fuel injectors, engine carbon cleaning, fuel valve springs, valve lifters, camshaft and valve lifters, engine carbon cleaning, fuel injectors. Now, there was a complaint about running rough upon a cold start, and that, according to that freeze frame data, it wasn't a cold start. It had been running for some time, so it's not currently misfiring, and it's not currently in fuel correction mode. So I'm going to have to discuss this with the customer because these repairs are fairly invasive. Let's do a injector flow test. Automated injector balance test. Now I've learned that this test only compares injectors on one bank to the ones on the same side and not bank to bank, because it will always show a difference right and left, in my opinion. I've checked vehicles that don't have problems and I get the same test results. But any difference between one cylinder and the next on the same bank is cause for concern. So all the injectors on 2, 4, 6, and 8, for instance. It's testing number 2. $23, $32. See, the cylinders 2, 4, 6, and 8 always show more of a drop than cylinders 1, 3, 5, and 7. And at first I thought that was a common problem, or that was a problem that I had, because I had a vehicle with misfires on bank 2, so I assumed it was overfueling. 42, 44, 46, 42, 23, 32, 35, 31. This 23 one looks bad. Let's try that one more time and see if we get the same results. Cylinder number 1. Let's try one more time and see if we get the same results. Well, it pulled up the last results. That's interesting. Cylinder number 2 testing. Cylinder number 4 testing. Cylinder number curious if this one changes, or did it already test that one? Because it's 29 now. I don't remember what it was last time. Still the same results. It's less of a drop. 29 versus 33, 34. So this thing could probably use some injectors and an intake valve cleaning. And then we have the problem with the oil pump. Let's see if we can actively control the engine oil pressure. Engine oil pressure control command. I'm going to build a custom data list. So here I'm monitoring actual engine oil pressure, PSI, 2 ways, absolute and absolute pressure and gauge pressure, and engine oil pressure control command solenoid. I'm commanding it on and now off, and there's no change in the oil pressure. So there's a problem with the oil pressure control solenoid on the oil pump. Yet the circuit's testing okay, as you can see. Okay. Open circuit, shorted circuit. So it's a physical problem with the solenoid. You can hear a change in the engine pitch when I command it on. Slight change. So this is going to need probably an oil pump replacement as well. Oh joy. So we're back looking at the misfire counters, and it's showed misfires on cylinders 1 and 7. Current misfires on cylinder 7 are 2. total misfires. It goes up to 255 counts and then starts over again. But it's not a dead miss like a collapsed valve spring or valve lifter. It's an imbalance code. I'm surprised it doesn't have a fuel injector imbalance code, because that's common. So here's the results of the keyword search for P06DD with the oil pressure problem. Potential causes are oil pressure control solenoid valve, which is on the oil pump, or the oil pump itself. So you can see the oil pump. Now I am going to check the oil quality, but at 76% oil life it should be pretty decent. It doesn't appear to have gasoline in it now, because the fuel trims are normal.